Hello and welcome to Walk the Talk Show with Waylon Lewis. I'm here with Shannon Galpin of Mountain to Mountain and Afghan Cycles and all kinds of things. So you were living up in a ski town. You have a daughter, you have a house, and then you started this. What did you start?
Started a nonprofit that is dedicated to women's rights in conflict zones.
And specifically
Afghanistan, yeah. So I've been traveling there since 2008.
So, and you sold your house to make this work?
Yeah, I gave up pretty much everything to make this work.
Yeah. So, I guess, my first question is, what, how can we in our own lives, because your example is both inspiring and I think intimidating. Like what could my aunt do? I just always think of my aunt or my mom or my family. Like my aunt is super caring, charismatic, but she's a teacher. She's in Virginia. Like what could she do to either, on the one hand, help these Afghan women, or to help women's rights generally, or in her own life, in her own community, what could she do?
Well, I think that that's really important because I talk about that a lot. That don't mimic me. Don't feel like you've got to upside down your life. Instead, look at everybody has the capacity to affect another human being or a issue. And so, you mentioned your aunt. It's like I look at one of my aunts who's an avid gardener. So urban gardens are huge.
Right.
Teaching kids in urban areas that are in these food deserts what a tomato is, how to grow from a seed. I mean, it can be really basic stuff that we think, well, gosh, that's not that big of a deal. It is a huge deal.
Huge deal, yeah.
And I have a 9-year-old daughter, and I look at some of the stuff that she's passionate about. She's passionate about endangered animals, I mean, particularly the snow leopard.
Aww.
So she did a little fundraiser at school, and she did a bake sale, and they adopted a snow leopard for the school.
Wow.
It's small, but it's the idea that matters.
Snow leopard.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah.
That's funding that helps protect snow leopard issues and lands and things. And so I think it's the idea that each of us has the capacity to put our drop in the bucket.
So, and my aunt may already do stuff, but in her case, if she loves teaching children, she could, find some way to help urban children.
I mean, essentially, she already is. She's a teacher.
Right.
But I mean, outside of that, if she's like, all right, I want to do something in my community. Yeah, I mean, are there ways to volunteer in your community to work with adults who are illiterate? Are there ways to work with people in the prisons? We've talked about prisons a little bit, where you could go in and work on literacy or work on educational skills, job skills, other things.
Right.
And I think it's that idea that a lot of people don't do that. What I'm starting to realize is because they think it doesn't matter enough. And what I'm trying to get people to realize is that every action matters. It has a ripple effect that we don't even know. And if you would realize that taking action in one small way matters, then if we had everybody taking those small actions, that would create massive change. It doesn't have to be the big sweeping changes.
Yeah.
Sustainable change actually happens by those little drops.
And it sounds obvious when you say it, but day to day, I think most of us look at, like, we're reading the news headlines about Iraq or about, Israel and Palestine or the Ukraine or women's rights or lack thereof or, rape or whatever, climate change. There's so many huge issues, and we're on our laptop, drinking our morning coffee, and we're like,
inundated.
What can I do about this?
Yeah.
In a way, you don't have to do anything about it. You just have to find, I think what's inspiring about you is you find your access point to save the world, even in a very focused way or a small way, through what you love doing, right?
Yeah, because I think it has to be organic. It has to be authentic. Because 6-7 years ago, I never thought I'd be doing what I'm doing with Mountain to Mountain. I did not think I'd have written a book. I'd be producing a film. I didn't think I'd be working with an Afghan national cycling team. There was no such thing.
Right.
I literally...
Because there it's immoral for women to be on a bicycle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So my first step was going to Afghanistan and listening for 4 weeks. I listened. I tried to see if I had a role. And if I didn't, I would have never gone back. But to see if I had a role and what that would be and how I could work authentically. But it's like, I think everybody looks at, take someone like a Mother Teresa or Nelson Mandela.
Right.
You look at what they are and they're bigger than life. Well, they're just they went through all the same shit we did, and step by step, they authentically followed their path and their voice, and it was all these little tiny steps that led up to that.
Yeah, I think it's actually very dangerous and disempowering, unempowering, the notion of heroes. Sometimes
oh my gosh, yeah.
people put these people up on a pedestal and say, well, I'm glad they're doing something because I'm watching Netflix live streaming tonight with my Ben and Jerry's.
Game of Thrones new season's on, and I'm like, whoa.
Yeah. And it's not either or. You can watch Game of Thrones. In fact, you should probably.
Definitely.
Boom, 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 boom,
Jon Snow, you nothing.
I'm on like season 3, so no spoilers. Please.
Okay.
And you can save the world in your so-called little way, and if we all do that, drops in the ocean, then the ocean is an ocean.
Exactly. A great example is I go back to Nelson Mandela, because obviously what he has done, the world.
Because he was all right.
He was kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
I got to have dinner when I was in Kabul with his lawyer, and that's the hero in a lot of respects. I mean, you have someone who believed in him and tried to represent him. Nobody knows who he is. I bet nobody could name his name.
Right.
And he's just kind of this. This guy, South African who believed in Nelson Mandela's story and is now a small part of that story, but has seen him when he wasn't Nelson Mandela, has seen him when he was a guy in jail.
Right.
And
for like ever.
Forever, exactly. And I think it's all of these, I don't know, it's almost like a fetish that we have in America where we have to put people on pedestals. Everyone you get to put on a pedestal, one, you make that unattainable, but also everybody's fallible. We put people on pedestals, they're going to fall off. So that's unhealthy. But I think it's really important to remember that's also very unattainable. Everyone who we put on a pedestal puts their pants on, one leg at a time, went to school, probably, had their victories, had their setbacks.
Yeah.
Ate peanut butter sandwiches,
and
whatever.
also, like, if we do more, then the people on the pedestal don't have to do quite as much.
Yeah,
like, these people are
burden.
Really burdened and overwhelmed often, and sacrifice their family and their, all their time and their, they don't get to. They want to watch Netflix streaming too.
Exactly.
Or whatever.
Yeah, if I had 20 more people engaged, I could watch season 3 of Game of Thrones.
Right. I know.
Priorities.
I'd be on season 4. So and specifically, to bring this back to your story, what's one thing everyone watching this could do to help you and to help the Afghan women that you're trying to help?
Well, actually, there's a lot of things. I think one is educate yourself about the issue. I mean, that's the biggest thing.
They could watch your film, Afghan Cycles, or
they could watch the trailer for Afghan Cycles. The
film will be out in the future.
The film will be out in the future, yes. Yeah. I think that they can certainly share the story of these remarkable women that are leading change in their own country. They can look at ways that they can share that story within their own community. They can use their voice for women in their own community. I mean, these issues that are facing Afghan women are happening in our own cities. Steubenville was a great example. Rape is like almost going rampant on college campuses. Why don't we look at our backyard issues? And essentially that idea of think globally but act locally. That's a great way. I would love to see people engaging in issues around gender violence and women's rights in their backyard. Denver is a major sex trafficking hub.
What?
Yeah, who knew? Nobody knows.
Are you serious?
I'm totally serious. So like these are issues in our backyards.
So how do you do this and not get super depressed? Because like I didn't know that, and now I'm like I'm 30 minutes from a sex. I mean, it's so painful.
Oh
right?
yeah, I throw the news up at least every other week. It's tough. It's really, really, really hard.
I think that comes back to like your own examples. If you take all that suffering and you find a way to help, then not only is it fun and empowering, but less suffering happens.
Yeah.
Right?
And I mean, I think you have to keep a sense of humor about it, which seems odd when we're talking about these issues. But what I've really learned is you have to realize how incredibly lucky we are to live where we live. Like, I am insanely lucky to be born in the 70s, in the Midwest, in America.
In the late 80s, is that what you said?
Yeah, late 80s, thank you.
Yeah.
Bless you. And I have rights, I have freedoms, I have every opportunity, much more so than even my mother or my grandmother, only because of a genetic passport. So I have to take that responsibility of, I'm probably, as American women, we're probably in that, top 5%, top 10% of access and opportunity. So my goal with that is to look at these issues that face the women of the world and say, okay, well, my responsibility is to take the access and the education that I have and do something, no matter what that little bit of something is. And in my case, it's grown into something a little bit bigger.
And in the viewer's case, or in my case, like, what can I do? Something local? You were saying, like with Steubenville, like there's rapes at every campus and sex trafficking.
Look. I'd say look into your community in terms of where are the opportunities to volunteer. What are the events going on that you can go and learn or be part of, or how, like my 9-year-old daughter did a fundraiser.
Right.
She did a bake sale, adopted a snow leopard. I mean,
right.
you can be part of a fundraiser. I mean, at the end of the day, nonprofits have to have money to do the work they do.
Right.
So I mean, that's part of it too, is can you raise money for a cause you believe in? Because
right.
all of those causes need money in order to affect change.
And I think it's an important lesson. Like, I started thinking about women's rights. What can I do with women's rights? But maybe that's not what I do. Maybe I have a bake sale for a snow leopard. Like, I find what I'm good at,
adopt an
what
elephant.
I can do, adopt an elephant. And my joy, I love to write, so what can I do through that?
Exactly. Yeah.
Everyone out there, you don't have to be overwhelmed. There's so many issues. Find what you love to do that can be helpful to others.
Use your voice. Use your voice for yourself. Use your voice for people who don't have a voice, and be loud.
Yeah. All right. Shannon Galpin, Mountain to Mountain, and everything else. Thank you so much.
Thank you.